So everybody okay with that? Just because we want to be able to share it with our board members and our people that have key stakeholders. And so I'm sure he'll be joining us momentarily as well. Does anybody have any amazing good plans for the weekend? We'll start with that now that the ice thing that was taking us had us in a chokehold for the last couple of days. Do we have any plans now that that's kind of subsided?
I'm going to go to the soul food dinner tonight.
Oh, nice. Good. Which one? Is it the one on UNI campus or is it the one?
No, the one Reverend Fuchs.
Oh, Abraham does. Oh, yes. He does an awesome job every year. He is a part of so many different dynamic, from the tour that he does of like a civil rights movement places in the South to awesome things. That should be really, really nice. I wish I would be able to make it. We have a couple games that are happening in our community right now, as far as a lot of our teams, both on East High and West High, have made it to state. So I got to kind of pick if I'm going to support my alma mater or if I'm going to go over to East High and support them.
There is literally so much going on. Don't you have an event every day? Like, isn't the Bridgerton? I know I just got something from BSU saying that they're having their skate party, I think on Saturday. So I'm like, oh my God, we all have to pick and choose like what to go to.
We do have to pick and choose. And at Bridgerton's next weekend, Jesse Cosby Ball next weekend. So it's a busy time, and I'm just ready for winter to let up so we can maximize off that busy time. How are you doing today, Maurice?
I'm good. I made it in, so thank you.
I appreciate that. I'm so excited about this conversation we're going to have today. And we're actually recording it. So some of our board members that couldn't make it and things like that, we'll be able to share it out with them later on, and so they can hear. But I've been following your work. I've been kind of, not cool to say, but I might have been stalking you on LinkedIn a little bit. And just some of the amazing initiatives that you've been connected to, the companies and the foundations that you have support from. And so I think we're in a unique time and space in the Cedar Valley. And so being able to connect to your work and learn more about what OneTen's mission is and some of your initiatives and how you've seen progress move to date that could really literally serve as a catalyst for us. So I'm excited, and I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself and share a little bit about your organization. And we're a small group here and we're among friends. So I'm excited about that, because I think we can really get down into some of the things that you've seen that help expand the ecosystem. So without further ado.
Well, happy to. Well, good afternoon. I think it's afternoon for you all now, right? Good afternoon to everybody. I'm Maurice with OneTen. And it's a delight to be with you. I'm hoping this can just be a back and forth. So I'll tell you a little bit about OneTen, and we can take it from there if that makes sense, Joy. So OneTen is a coalition now of about 72 companies and growing, and about 110 organizations that are in the what I call the talent development space. And that's organizations that are preparing learners and other talent to be successful in jobs that pay great wages, that are held together by the ambition to hire, promote, advance 1 million Black talent who don't yet have 4-year degrees into family-sustaining jobs and careers over the next 10 years. The focus is trying to transform our employer community and others to a skills-first approach to managing talent. And let me just sort of give you a little bit of backdrop here. The backdrop is, you look at the country today, you see an incredible wealth gap, a wealth gap that largely breaks down along, not entirely, but largely breaks down along lines of race and place. So I'll give you a data point. If you look at the average wealth of a white family in our country today, it's about 10 times that of the average wealth of a Black family. And so, and when you look at all the things that generate wealth, yes, home ownership and small business ownership and access to capital and financial institutions and great schools and places to buy healthy food and to have recreation and great jobs, jobs that allow folks to pay their bills, save money, put aside money for education, etc. That last space, if you look at the data there, here's what you see around the country. If you look at all jobs in the country that pay $60,000 or more, what you find is on paper, about 79% of those jobs require that the candidate must have a 4-year degree just to compete for the job. If you look at all jobs that pay $40,000 or more across our country, on paper, 71% of those jobs require that you must have a 4-year degree just to compete for the job. And then when you look at the workforce across the country, you see that when it comes to Black talent in the workforce today, ages 25 and above, 76% of us do not yet have a 4-year degree. That percentage is about 83% for Hispanics. It's about 66% for whites. And if you aggregate all demographics, all folks in the workforce today, ages 25 and above, 66% of us do not yet have a 4-year degree. And so the premise of OneTen is we literally have, in the form of a credential, a systemic barrier to folks earning their way into the middle class in America. We can do something about that. We don't need public policy to eliminate the 4-year degree requirement where it's not related to doing the work. And so what we're saying is, look, let's move to a skills first approach where skills are the dominant factor of success across the entire talent journey. And you can come about skills through multiple pathways. One pathway may be through a 4-year degree experience, but it shouldn't be the only pathway. Military experience, work experience, community college experience, apprenticeship, boot camps, all of those pathways should be validated and utilized and leveraged. And that's what this journey is all about. So we've got companies that we're asking to put on the table jobs that pay a living wage and don't require a 4-year degree. We're asking them to remove 4-year degree requirements where they're not necessary in order to have the skills to do the work. We've got organizations that can equip the talent to be successful in those jobs that we're partnering with to recruit talent and to equip talent. And we've got, in our case, the focus cohort is Black talent without 4-year degrees. We started effectively in March of 2021. If you look at from March of 2021 to the end of September of 2022, I don't have fourth quarter data yet. This coalition has hired and promoted over 73,000 Black talent who don't have 4-year degrees into jobs that pay at a minimum the living wage in that area where the job is located. That's what the OneTen journey is all about. We are trying to recruit more companies, more talent, more places to join this skills first approach to managing talent so we can have a workplace that's more open and equitable, and frankly, so we can stop leaving genius on the sideline because we're focused on a credential and not the aptitude and attitude of talent. That's what OneTen is all about. I apologize for being long-winded about it, but that's what this journey is all about.
Not long-winded at all, Maurice. I would say I think you gave a great frame of reference. We've been around a few years as an organization, but actually rolling out our operations and our programming, we're kind of early on in our journey for that. And so I thought it was awesome that we connect with you today, because I have actually even a couple board members that are on here right now too, and that lead a community college or lead a foundation and that really want to dive into workforce development. And I love that you use the numbers, and you didn't just use them as it applies to Black talent, like even understanding that these credentials are a barrier to everyone, because most people don't have a 4-year degree. And so when you started this though, when you started this work from day one, or let's say month one or whatever have you, when you first said, hey, we're going to ask people to lower that 4-year credential, we're going to ask people to question that, what was some of the feedback you got on that? Or how were you able to work with, we as a community, we tend to lean into 4-year degrees. Like I used to work for a career technical education for high school students. And I had people that say, oh, don't tell them to go, if they go 2-year, then stop. What about 4-year? And so how did you battle that overview of like, we can do this, there's another way to do this?
Yeah, so two things. This skills first approach is really contagious in the corporate community right now. I mean, companies understand that skills are the most important thing. So, and the data sort of support that, right? If you look at the data, the research that's been done, what the data show is that skills are a better predictor of success on the job by 5 times when you compare it to education. Skills are a better predictor of success on the job by 2.5 times when you compare it to experience. So the first thing to be said is, OneTen sort of launched in this context where skills first was already taking hold in our employer community. That's the first thing to be said. The second thing, though, is we definitely confronted a lot of skepticism, a lot of people who used that 4-year degree as a proxy for, if they got the 4-year degree, that I know they can learn the job. If they got the 4-year degree, that I know that they are ambitious, or, and when you peeled back that onion, what was really going on is the 4-year degree was a box check, right? It was a way in which people who got a lot of applications could say, well, if they don't have this 4-year degree, I can just weed them out. It was a weeding out instrument more so than it was a determinant of, does this person have the stuff I'm looking for? And then the third thing is, and this is the toughest, is mindset, right? The mindset shift that has to happen here is that one, talent is everywhere. It's opportunity that's missing. And two, the picture of excellence has to be one that is broader than me, right? Than someone who shares my education, shares my race, shares my religion. We bumped up against all of that, and we're still, wrestling with that. And I would tell you the toughest challenge is the mindset piece. It's people really wrestling with their bias in favor of that blanket, as I call it, of a 4-year degree. By the way, we looked at a job. It was a coding job, and the coding job had a BA requirement. And what it meant is, as when I was talking to the HR folks, I have a BA in political science. It meant that on paper, that company would interview me for a coding job before they interviewed someone who just successfully completed an 8-week boot camp in coding. As I said to that company, if you interview me for a coding job before anybody else, you got a bad business practice. I am the last person who you should be interviewing for a coding job. And so it was like stuff like that made people really understand, you know what? This doesn't make business sense. This doesn't even make common sense. But the mindset piece here, that security blanket of a 4-year degree, is what we are still wrestling with and will be for quite some time.
That is an excellent, because I'm a champion of tech. I do not want to shape it out at all. Like I love working with younger people. So I love that you shared some of the feedback, because I acknowledge, I feel like in our community, we will run up against that too.
Oh
I
yeah,
recently
every
read
community.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And that was a great one. Like I have a 4-year degree too, but again, I wouldn't want to be the person that you want to make sure I'm making sure your cybersecurity network is
No,
secure, because
I'm
you're
not the
not
one.
going to be secure if it's me, right? And so thinking about that, on the flip side, who have you found to be some of like your biggest champions when it comes to this work? Like, and
So
has there
get
been any
this.
surprise?
I'll give you an example. So IBM actually started the skills first journey 7 or 8 years ago. And what they will tell you is when they started, over 80% of their jobs required a 4-year degree for you to compete. Today, it's 50% of their jobs. So the IBM leaders are big champions. Accenture, a professional services firm, started their skills first journey about 5 years ago. Again, when they started, over 80% of their jobs required a 4-year degree. Today, it's less than 48%. These are firms that are still standing and making a lot of money. And so these folks will tell you straight up, when they started looking at where they had degree requirements, they couldn't make sense of it. And the data suggests there's a Harvard business professor that did a little work on this. And apparently 2008 was like this crucial year when companies imposed 4-year degree requirements where they hadn't had them before. And the reason was they could. It was a recession, people were out of work, and they could actually impose, because it was a buyer's market, so to speak. They can impose additional requirements. So they did. They didn't do it because they needed, because they thought that was how they wanted. They did it because they could.
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna flip the script a little bit, because I think you've given us some very compelling information about why we should look at other ways or other experiences to be counted. For OneTen, your mission focus on skilling up Black community members. Have you received pushback about that? Like being so intentional, even though for me in this space, I noticed you gave the data points for Latinos, for
Yeah.
whites, for multiple people, and this would benefit everybody, right? Like your
So,
work would actually benefit everyone.
yeah. So the deal is, a company that truly transforms itself into a skills first employer will benefit the whole demographic that we're talking about, because 66% of all folks don't have a 4-year degree. So we have been really intentional about Black talent without 4-year degrees, because we know there you have to wrestle with the 4-year degree requirement and cultural things within the companies, and making folks truly belong and creating an environment where all talent can thrive. We know if we fix those issues, we're going to be fixing them across the board. So we've gotten very little pushback, because the organizations understand the bigger picture here, and they understand that they have to be intentional on race to truly make this work for folks of color.
Okay, I like that, because I do know, and I think I shared this with you when we talked about hosting this session, that our community is on the top 10 worst places for Blacks in the US. I think we're number 6, according to the 24/7 Wall Street report. And the interesting time is we have this coalition of businesses and individuals that I think are truly passionate about changing that. And as a part of changing that, like you said, it actually is kind of like a rising ship lifts all tides, right? Like everyone will benefit more from that. But I love that you shared the stats and the statistics that support that as well. So you've seen some huge, huge support to date, right? Aside from, what did you say? You guys have placed already over 30,000 individuals?
Over 73,000.
Oh, 73,000. Wow, wow. So what is some of the, can you share like one key initiative, or sometimes I know when you're launching
Yeah.
something,
So
it's
look-
hard, but is there something out there that you're like, Joy, you guys got to do this?
Well, I wouldn't say that, because I think you have to do what is right for your community. But I will tell you, the Cleveland Clinic is a great example, right? They're in Cleveland. They're the largest employer in Ohio. But the Cleveland Clinics, got operations in Abu Dhabi and London, Florida, and Cleveland. They weren't doing so well with respect to hiring Black talent in Cleveland. And they started and they thought, well, we're the Cleveland Clinic. We need PhDs and MDs. We don't think we're going to have a lot of jobs that don't require a 4-year degree, but we'll start with some IT jobs where we know we don't need a 4-year degree. They started with that. 9 months later, they had become such a convert to skills first hiring, and understood and saw how much it was allowing them to actually lean into their hometown of Cleveland and get at some issues of frankly, a lack of trust between them and the Black community in Cleveland. They then went on and removed the 4-year degree requirement from over 2,000 jobs.
Wow.
And they're going out into the Black community in Cleveland on the weekends, holding career fairs and literally making job offers and hiring people. And so they're creating more proximity between them and the Black community in Cleveland than they've ever had. And it's working.
Nice.
It's working. They're one of our biggest and most successful employers when it comes to hiring Black talent without 4-year degrees over the last 2 years.
I love that. I seen that too. I shared it on my LinkedIn when you shared it out.
You did. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did. I definitely did. So another question I like to ask too, because I see that you kind of serve as like a hub for connecting everyone, right? Are there any specific training programs that you've seen that have been really successful? Is there any specific partnerships, or sounds like it's a little bit of everything, right?
It
But
is a little bit of everything. Apprenticeships, we've seen them be successful. We've got companies that will curate apprenticeships for companies that don't have the infrastructure. And you can do apprenticeships across all job categories practically.
Right.
We've seen these career fairs that I just mentioned. We've seen folks partnering with community colleges, with military transition. I mean, it really is an array of things. If I picked one, though, it would be apprenticeships, because apprenticeships give talent the ability to earn and learn at the same time. Most talent can't take off from work and go do a training. They can't afford to. So if they're able to earn and learn and get training and get a credential and get on the job mentoring at the same time, it does the trick. And the employer gets a trial run with the talent, and also is in a position to really teach that talent, not just the technical skills, but the business, the cultural skills and muscles needed. And so apprenticeships are really powerful.
I love that. I have helped start some for a prior school district that I work for. And I literally have seen, and I was doing it for kids. So I've seen kids that are 17 years old come in, work a summer with a big company in our area. And then they're coming back to my office and they're talking about they're going to be a shareholder and there's stock options. And it's funny. Now, kids are funny too, because they're like, and I need a raise, Joy. I need to talk to them.
Good for them. Good for them.
Literally, I had a group that was like, okay, Joy, like, I need you to go back in there and talk for raise. But like you said, it's not only did they get the skills, they got the language, they understood how to create agency for themselves in a way that I probably didn't learn until I was much older in life. You have these groups of 17-year-old, 18-year-old students. that have already started to build, that are already starting to understand their value, are already starting to build a relationship with the company. It was funny because I started one with a larger company, but then a smaller manufacturing company too. And one of the students I just knew was going to go from the smaller company to the larger one because, you know, everybody kind of went to go there. He was like, I like the smaller environment. I get to play more roles there. I get to show up as a leader there. And so even that, I was like, if companies even could hear this, they would understand, like, you even have an opportunity to build loyalty and,
Oh yeah.
with your workforce through this way. So apprenticeships are so important.
So the greatest retention is from apprentices.
Yes, I love that. That is look, I'm writing it down. That's a nugget right there. The greatest retention is from apprentices. Okay, awesome. Well, we've talked
I know
about
folks have to hop, so I want to make sure if we can get to some questions here before people have to go, I'd love to.
Yeah, definitely. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to add in the chat?
Or just
Hey, Maurice,
put them out there.
Maurice, this is Todd Holcomb, and I work at Hawkeye Community College. You know, one of the things that we're doing at Hawkeye Community College, we're also the third largest apprenticeship provider in the state of Iowa. So we're wholeheartedly agreeing with you on apprenticeships. But one of the things that we're working towards is stackable short-term credentials.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about, you know, what you're seeing out there for OneTen and your entities about stackable short-term credentials.
Yeah, no, we're seeing community colleges like yourself, actually, who are providing the opportunity for stackable credentials. We're also seeing companies pay for people to actually continue to reskill and upskill and get those stackable. So it's a powerful piece for the talent if you can do that. And the companies are willing to put some money into it.
Dr. Holcomb, that was a great question.
Yeah, that is, and it's powerful.
We've seen a manufacturing pre-apprenticeship here. Actually, Dr. Holcomb, we helped launch that with Hawkeye College. And again, just watching how it's been able to transform not only young people's lives, but even like non-traditional students have really been able to benefit from that as well. I will say, sometimes getting companies to understand right off, like the benefit of that.
Oh yeah.
Can be a challenge. Would you have some language we could use to, like, I mean, again, I love that stat that apprenticeship is the best determinant of retention.
It's not really I mean, you got to put the data in front of them, right? And so I can send you some data, but you got to get in front of them and you got to get the talent in front of them, right? For us, the most powerful thing we've seen, we make the business case, but the most powerful thing we've done is put peers of companies together where folks can hear what their competitors are doing and their peers are doing. Boy, you talk about folks walking away going, wait a minute, if they can do that, I know we can do it. And so I would encourage you to think about communities of practice where you're bringing together the companies and the talent and sharing what is working with each one of them. That has been a powerful way to actually move companies to actually become more aggressive.
Communities of practice. I love
communities of practice. Yeah, they have been powerful in this.
So I have a question too. We talked about the good outcomes. Has there been anything in your journey for this that you said, maybe we need to pivot, or maybe we learned something, or maybe if we had a chance to do this over, we would do it in a different way?
Every day.
Every day? Okay.
Every day. I mean, we know that we've got to generate more trust, but you know, just because the jobs are there, the talent isn't going to just come, right? Because you are doing this in the context of a story that's been going on for decades. And so as one guy said to me, Black guy, when we were telling him about this company in his community who was looking to hire, he goes, man, I've been here for years. how is it that now X company wants to hire me? I don't believe you, right? And so don't underestimate the stories that you have to be able to acknowledge and work with when you're trying to do this. Because the most important ingredient that we've seen is trust. Does Black talent trust that the companies really want them, all of them? Do the companies trust that there really are incredible, brilliant minds that they're leaving on the sideline that we can access or help them access? Do the folks who are providing the training and the talent supports, do they trust that the talent really will be held primary in all of this? Because once something goes awry, if there's not trust, then people walk away. And so what we have learned is that we have to focus on not just the technical aspects of making this ecosystem work and scaling it, but the trust that is needed so that people will give one another the benefit of the doubt when mistakes are made. That's been our biggest lesson.
Don't you think it's the connection between the head and the heart? You could have the intellectual, the head knowledge, right? But you got to have the connection with the heart, and people have to be able to trust you.
People have to be able to believe that, but people also have to see that you understand the story that you're stepping into. Right? People, if you don't acknowledge that you understand why this community has had some of the challenges that it has, and frankly, the roles that others have played, either intentionally or unintentionally, people will say, no, they don't get it. They don't get me. Right? And so you really have to have, yes, head and heart. No question about it. But you also have to create the kind of proximity that leads to people getting close enough to say, yeah, I'm gonna give this guy a shot. I'm gonna give him a shot. It looks like he means it. If you don't work on that piece of it, this thing falls apart the moment you make a mistake. And we will make a mistake every day. The question is, do you say that was a mistake, or do you say that just is proof of why I was skeptical to start with? That's the piece we have to work with.
I absolutely love that, because a lot of times you're right. We do say we have these beliefs that can reinforce how we feel about something. So if it's, well, I knew that company didn't really want me to work there, or I knew they weren't going to be able to make it here as a company. Trust is the thing that bridges that gap, that helps where that doesn't occur. So I absolutely love that. I have a question and I'm gonna come back to that, because I want to ask you after this question, how do we start building that trust as a community? But the question in the chat is, what would be the recommendations to overcome the systemic barriers to apprentices, especially when equity is noticeably lacking? Great question. Mm-hmm.
So look, I think on the apprenticeship piece, it really is trying to forge partnerships between, the Hawkeye community colleges of the world and companies, right? Where we've seen apprenticeship programs work best is when you've got this partnership between the places that have the jobs and the places that have the talent and can prepare the talent. And then what we ask all the companies to do is to focus on having coaches and mentors and sponsors inside the company for the talent. If you don't have those, you're going to have an environment where the talent is not going to be able to thrive. The last piece that I would say is we also encourage the companies to hire in cohorts. Don't hire one or two Black folks in isolation. It's not going to go well. Hire in cohorts so that folks have company that they're going with. Those would be the things I put out there.
Okay, those were excellent because again, thinking about it from that lens of, a lot of times we're like, we're hiring, but we don't understand that we're not necessarily creating an environment.
Yeah, you gotta focus on that.
Exactly. Is there any other questions that you can go ahead and ask? We're a small group, so if you want to ask Maurice something else, feel free to go ahead and open up.
It's Maurice, you just said, talking about hiring cohorts. I just said that to a business owner a couple months ago. He had three openings, and I asked him how many African Americans he had employed. He said, well, 0. I said, well, we're 11% unemployment of African Americans in Waterloo. There's your opportunity. He said, do you think that's where I should be going? I said, absolutely. And don't hire one, hire all 3.
That's
you
right.
Have 3 openings, hire all 3.
That's right.
That'll create a group where they can support each other.
That's exactly right.
I totally agree with what you're saying, because I've seen that a lot.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question.
I got to take off. So thanks, everybody.
I actually am going to have to take off in a few minutes myself too. So I want to make sure I've answered. Any other questions I can try to answer for folks?
Yes. Chelsea has a question on what advice do you have for creating inclusive environments? People can jump on board with diversity, but the support needs to exist and be developed in those spaces. Do you have any examples you can share of organizations you've worked with?
So
Hiring, she said the cohorts is super helpful, and I agree. That was one.
The most important thing is leadership. The companies that have done the best at this have been companies whose CEO has made it clear that this is his or her priority, that they're going to hold people accountable, they're going to measure it, they're going to track this, they're going to provide incentives, they're going to invest financial resources and infrastructure resources. If you don't have CEO buy-in and leadership, it's not going to go well. So there is nothing more crucial than leadership on this topic. And if you get leadership on this topic, it is transformative.
Great question, Chelsea.
Yeah,
awesome.
Appreciate that question.
Kristen or Macy or Abby, did you have another question too before Maurice has to go? Maurice, this has been excellent. I took so many notes on my.
Nice to be with you all. Happy to do it again. Happy to do it again.
Good. I can imagine when we put this one out, I'll probably definitely be reaching out and more people saying, like, all right, okay, we need to have him back to talk more about this because.
Happy to come back.
Y'all
need to invite me so I can come out there in person.
That's what we want to do. So definitely want to get you here in person soon. I have a question too about how do you talk to people and say, this isn't an overnight fix, right? Like you've had huge success.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. So look, this is the OneTen commitment is a 10-year commitment because we're talking about changing companies. We're talking about changing mindsets. We're talking about changing the trajectory of families and their members. We're talking about changing the climates within which we're living in this country. There's nothing overnight about that. Nothing. So to join OneTen, we require that the companies be willing to do it for a decade because it is all about change.
Love it.
All right, I got folks telling me I gotta get off here before I get in trouble.
Okay.
I'll do it again if it makes sense for you all.
Thank you so much, Maurice. We really appreciate it.
We'll
talk
Happy
again
Friday.
soon.
Okay.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Bye-bye.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you got some good information from Maurice. I mean, I've been in this work for a while, but when he talked about the hiring people in cohorts, when he gave some of those facts and figures on apprenticeships to have a higher retention, and I think those things, the things that I subconsciously knew, but giving them language, saying them, and then having those stats that backed it up was super powerful for us. And so I can't wait. I'm going to put this out on our YouTube, on our social media, so that people can access it and have access to it. But I don't know if anybody, before we wrap up, you wanted to share anything about how you felt about some of the information he said.
I thought the information was great since there's such a long commitment, like a decade, and we know that that's to be true, right? We need that commitment. But I wonder if there's any data points even because like Shift works with the youth and we start from 12 up. I'm wondering if there's any data points to show, hey, you have to start with like internships and pre-apprenticeships and then kind of move on to break some of those systematic barriers instead of like going in with a hard sell, like, you have to do this, like this doesn't work. So I would love to have that kind of information as well.
I'll definitely reach out. And he said he'll send us over some of those facts and figures too. How about you, Chelsea? And maybe we should even, since we're so small, I wonder if we even should do some quick intros. Yeah.
You want me to do an intro real quick? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Since we have a few more minutes.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So if you weren't on the meeting yesterday, I'm Chelsea Luring. I'm with the City of Cedar Falls. So I am our liaison for our Human Rights Commission. And then I also work within our Human Resources Department with the city. So, and I'm also the liaison now for One Cedar Valley. But I think what was really helpful for me is I'm actually right now going through like our job classifications, our job descriptions. And, I've been looking for inclusive language and things like that, but just having this like at the forefront of my mind now, like, okay, but does this position really need, 4-year degree? I've been thinking about lately just, as many ways as possible as we can remove barriers. So even just like the job application process itself, trying to get it all on one page. I know at least with like our department, you have to go in like 3 different places, download this, fill out this, send this. And then also, we've been talking about education requirements, like having proof of that. So that's been a thing for me that, do all jobs need to have proof of education? Could that be a potential barrier? So yeah, it's just been good to have this discussion now because it's going right into the work I'm doing. So good.
I'm glad. That's what we're here for, to help make sure that as we all are going out there, that we're collectively like having resources that help inform us. And again, I love that he said 66% of people don't have a 4-year degree, right? And that the only reason that became a requirement was because people could do that, right? And so on the flip side, now that we're in this place where most people are saying there's a hiring shortage, we need to rethink that, right? And think about how that works. So I super agree with you on that. And he gave me several facts. And Kristen will tell you, if I get a fact and it's data, I'm not the data person, but if I get it, I will use it. I definitely will. So Kristen, you got a chance to meet Chelsea at the yesterday too, right? Okay, perfect.
I remember
I
you
did.
There, so.
Good. Well, go ahead.
I really like that he said if they require a 4-year degree, that it's almost like a signal that there is a lack of culture. Like I would never have equated the two. Yeah. And we know that that's the greatest retention plan. So I'm just baffled that they wouldn't connect the dots on that one.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't, right? Like there's oftentimes things that would feel like common sense. It's hard when you're actually doing the work and you're in those throes of day-to-day operations. It's almost like not in your focus to step back and say, okay, wait, can we do this more effectively? Is there something in place that we could do that would cause us to see more talent like we want to see? And so it does feel like that should be, but it's not always. And this because it's our area, like us three, it's like, this is our jobs, right? So we know because this is our job to know, right?
Well, and I love it that he had even mentioned the earn and learn. I mean, that's what we practice, and I think even having that language to talk to companies that like, hey, we have these great young people, and if there's no legality issue, like machinery or like something like that, you really need to start younger. Like, how good would it be for us to have that training, like, and start younger and then build up? Because I know, especially when it comes to the good paying jobs with our youth, they have that experience and then they're like, this is what I want, or I want engineering, or I want this. And we're talking about inclusion, right? Like, we've had IEP students where we know that academically they're not performing, but we have put them in like a CTE environment or hands-on environment or done an internship, and they have just excelled. So just the access points of it, like, I would like to see those access points change.
And even having an understanding that best case scenario is you can start a pre-apprenticeship with us, right? But creating an ecosystem where it's not so structured, where if I'm 19, I can't get into a pre-apprenticeship or an apprenticeship. If I'm 23 and I thought I was going to do this and now I'm doing this, I still have that. If I'm 35 and
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like having it have enough on-ramps in our ecosystem that it's we're building inclusion, not exclusion, right? So best case scenario, you work with us from 12 up, right?
Yeah.
But if we don't get you from 12 up, we still have a system in place in the Cedar Valley that we can still serve you.
That's where you have to have the fluidity. That's why, like, we've been so successful, is because we can move like that and be flexible. And I forget what my statistic is very old, but I know, like, even the statistics saying, hey, if you get a 2-year degree, 4-year degree, master's, like if you go all the way through college, the last part, I think it was 3 to 5 different career changes throughout your life. So if you don't have, like, I have 8 years of education, when I finished my first 4 years, I was like, there's no way, like, I hate this industry. Like, I worked in it for a decade. I don't want to do this anymore. And so then you spend all this money, and what are you supposed to do? Like, are you still supposed to continue in school? And then it happens in another 2 years, So I even think about that all the time when I'm talking to our youth. Like, it's okay to be flexible, but so many of these systems are not built like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. We got work to do. That's why even when we say we've seen success, I'm like, have we? Because we got so much work to do. I want to be like him, where I'm like, we've got 70,000 people employed. I'm like, yes. So that's ambitious, but hopefully we can get there, or at least get plugged into their network so the things that they're doing can support the work that we're doing too. So I know I got to get ready to go too. So thank you guys for joining us, having this conversation today.
This up. Appreciate
yes,
it.
of course. We'll be doing more. So thank you. I appreciate you just jumping in too, Chelsea. Like, you're like, yes, here's the openings, here's all the things.
No worries.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.